How can Alex Smith be forgotten if we remember him? Well, you probably know who Alex Smith is, but it's most likely because he suffered one of the most gruesome leg injuries we've seen since the exact same thing happened to the exact same leg of a quarterback named Joe Theismann in the exact same part of the field for the same team exactly 33 years apart on, yes, the exact same day. That's not what a first overall draft pick wants to be remembered for, though. Like, dear God, do you guys remember his injury? His fucking leg snapped in half. And he came back and played for no reason other than to prove he could. His leg was in pieces. He's a goddamn hero, and we should all be worshiping that man. Worshipping him like a god, and we barely remember his busted ass. He was so busty they called him milk sacks. I think a lot of people forget that Alex Smith was the first overall pick in the 2005 draft. And unlike the forgotten busts we've balls deeped here before, Paxton Lynch and Jake Locker, Alex Smith revived his career twice. But even his revivals were short-lived as a bridge QB for Patty Mahomes, as a mentor for Colin Kaepernick, or vice versa, whatever. Alex Smith was the definition of a bust as a QB for the 49ers. But as he was given time to develop and turn into a decent pro, I have to wonder how many current young quarterbacks are getting shafted by having no time to develop. Today, we're going balls deep into Alex Smith, bust turned comeback player of the year, and everything in between. Big thanks to Bear Mattress for sponsoring today's show and for sending me 2 new twin mattresses for Carmi's new bed. Now, they've got a lot of great spring sales running at Bear, but they gave me a higher discount than offered on-site for you, my viewers. So head to bearmattress.com/thatsgood or use my code THATSGOOD to get 40% off your Bear mattress. Now, I'm sure most of you know I got my Bear mattress last summer, and it's been amazing, especially as it warms up here again. I sleep hot. Yes, I do. And the Elite Hybrid mattress I have uses cooling technology and a 5-zone support coil system to pull heat away from my body, and then I think send that heat straight into the core of the earth, where it is used to build new land masses via volcanoes. The first part of that was true. In our house, it was time to get our 3.5-year-old a new twin-sized bed. Unfortunately, she still wakes up a lot at night, and one of us ends up on her floor, mostly my wife. Okay, only my wife. So we got her a trundle bed and 2 twin Bear mattresses so that Jess has a real spot to sleep when Carmi has a nightmare. Thank God Bear is dropped off at your doorstep and the mattresses unpacked to perfection with ease, because that dang bed took me all day to build. The mattresses were the easiest part. So you can go to bearmattress.com/thatsgood to get 40% off plus $400 in sleep accessories. Take the easy online quiz to determine which bed is best for your sleeping and body type. And rest assured, knowing there's a 120-night sleep trial to test your mattress along with the lifetime guarantee. That seems crazy, considering my team, my football team, can't even get a 2-year guarantee for our QBs. In addition to busty, Alex Smith might be the unluckiest quarterback in NFL history. He has to be the only quarterback I can think of who got benched and traded after playing his best pro football of his career basically twice. And the second time he got traded, not only did he suffer one of the worst on-field injuries we've witnessed, he nearly died from infections as he tried to recover from multiple surgeries. And as soon as he made his triumphant return to the NFL post his gruesome leg injury, Aaron Donald jumped on his back and tried to end him again. Alex Smith cheated death just so Aaron Donald could assault him one last time. Legend. But let's go back to the great state of Utah in the year 2003 and 2004. How did Alex Smith become the first overall draft pick in the 2005 draft? 2 words: Urban Meyer. Okay, sure. That's not the only reason that Smith became the first pick in the 2005 draft. But we've forgotten what an effective college coach Urban Meyer was in the 2000s, even at Utah, before he won his national championship at Florida and Ohio State.
And we hired this guy named Urban Meyer. I'd never heard of him.
Alex Smith had gone as far as to turn down an offer from Louisville where his uncle was the head coach to avoid any feelings of nepotism. And Smith proved he could do it on his own at Utah. And I applaud that because even as a small child, I always wished I could have been a nepotism baby. Now Smith only started for 2 years with the Utes, but he fit in Meyer's scheme perfectly and threw for 48 touchdowns and rushed for another 15 in 2003 and 04 combined. He was efficient, had a good enough arm, and could move so much better than most quarterbacks at the time. And we tend to take athleticism for granted now when we look at quarterbacks. But in the final years of the pocket passer, Smith offered rare mobility alongside the ability to play from the pocket. My favorite thing about Alex Smith was always that he was faster than he looked. He might be the fastest quarterback in football history based on speed to looks ratio, okay? Does that mean he should have been taking 24 picks ahead of Aaron Rodgers? Maybe not, but scouting is a very flawed process. And that statement will be true until the NFL folds in on itself and dies. And the thing that will end the NFL, of course, will be one of Aaron Rodgers' conspiracies.
We know CIA was involved.
Now, the 49ers turned down the local product, Rodgers, and threw Smith into the fire almost immediately. While Rodgers had 3 years to sit behind Brett Favre and a very competent Packers team, Alex Smith was thrown to the wolves alongside the worst team in the NFL heading into the 2005 season. Alex Smith had one of the worst rookie quarterback seasons you can imagine. Well, at the very least, he has one of the worst passing stat lines for a rookie ever. Smith started 7 games, threw 1 touchdown to 11 interceptions. That's right, 1 touchdown to 11 picks and averaged fewer than 100 passing yards per game. His first start might be the worst debut by any quarterback in NFL history. Again, the situation was not welcoming for a young, raw QB, but there's no way to sugarcoat Smith's atrocious start to his career. It's week 5 of the 2005 season. 49ers head coach Mike Nolan gives Smith the nod to start the game. Opposite Smith is prime Peyton Manning leading the Colts. Peyton, out of respect for Smith, didn't even play his best game, just 255 passing yards, 1 TD, and 2 picks. But Smith was so bad the Colts handled the 49ers 28-3, back when that number meant nothing to NFL fans. Nothing! Now, it should have been 35-3, but the Niners defense stripped running back Edgerrin James of the ball on the goal line in the second quarter. Smith played a respectable first quarter, actually going 4 for 6, but then everything went to hell when he threw his first pick 6 to Cato June in the second quarter. He followed that by going deep to the Colts again. An underthrown pass that didn't result in defensive pass interference. You know a throw is bad if Brandon Lloyd can't make a circus catch to haul it in. And after Peyton Manning threw a pretty terrible interception himself, Alex Smith answered by rolling left and throwing his 3rd pick in the second quarter to Mike Doss. One hilarious thing that happened in this game is that the 49ers, to start the second half, kicked a surprise onside kick that they recovered. I guarantee Sean Payton remembered this shit when he dialed up the Saints' successful onside kick to beat the Colts in the Super Bowl a few years later. But even more ballsy and crazy, the Niners tried one more onside kick immediately after that and nearly recovered it. Now, Alex Smith finished the game with another pick to Cato June. Smith's final stat line was 9 completions on 23 attempts, giving him a completion percentage of 39, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 5 sacks taken. That's as bad as it gets. And nobody ever called the Colts defense a juggernaut. Now, Smith's entire rookie season was something of a calamity. In fact, many point to Alex Smith as having one of the worst quarterback seasons of all time. Not just as a rookie, but ever. Just 1 touchdown to those 11 picks I mentioned, and that touchdown didn't come until the last game of the season, a win over the Texans. Can you really even count that as a win against the 2000 Texans teams?
Super Bowl, Houston or San Francisco.
Effectively, Smith had gone 6 starts without throwing a TD. And mind you, this was the number 1 overall pick. Even colossal busts like Ryan Leaf lucked into a little success their rookie seasons. The only rookie QB that elusive with scoring was, of course, Tim Tebow. Virgin.
Oh, that's funny? That's cool. Let's laugh at your worst days.
Now, touchdowns began to increase gradually for Smith, while interceptions became less frequent. However, the offense consistently struggled to find its rhythm. Even by the end of the 2007 season, Smith's completion rate remained at just 48%. Smith had a much improved sophomore year with offensive coordinator Norv Turner, but year 3 was a disaster as Smith had his third OC in 3 seasons. Turner left for the Chargers, and Smith was given Jim Hostetler to call his plays. Smith was not playing well, and then he injured his shoulder, and the rest of the season was a wash as he struggled to recover from a mismanaged injury diagnosis on his shoulder. Now, Smith had just 2 touchdowns and 5 picks that season, and 1 heavy heart, according to Next Gen Soul Stats. Now, despite improvements in his raw stats over the following 5 years, including an 18 touchdown and 12 interception season in 10 games in 2009, Smith never managed to establish a consistent flow. Whether due to frequent changes in the lineup with journeyman QBs such as Sean Hill and Trent Dime Dilfer, or his stint on IR in 2008 when JT O'Sullivan started for the 49ers, Alex Smith's career was engulfed in chaos. Unlike Ryan Leaf and Jamarcus Russell, though, there wasn't drama surrounding Smith, just incompetence, and he was basically forgotten. It got so bad during a Sunday night game in 2010 when the 49ers were trailing the Eagles by 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter. Niners fans were chanting, "We want Carr! We want Carr!" And they were talking about David Carr, the worst Carr, brother.
I mean, there definitely was a few-year period where I was far more comfortable playing on the road, that I looked forward to road games, that the pressure of the home game, fans turning on us, yeah, that was a lot.
Fans were so desperate, they were grasping for the 2002 number 1 overall pick and consensus bust to replace the guy who had been there for 6 years now. Replace a bust with a bust? Do 2 negatives make a positive? No, I think it's like multiplying by 0. So when did it change? Jim Harbaugh in 2011. The 49ers had already purged themselves of 2 Mikes, Nolan and Mike
cannot win with him.
Singletary. Alex Smith was on his 3rd head coach in 7 seasons, and his family actually wanted him to leave San Francisco and start fresh somewhere else, anywhere else. Like Alcatraz, they felt like his career was being held prisoner. But they didn't account for the sense of belief, confidence, and empowerment that a truly insane man like Jim Harbaugh was about to instill into his new QB.
He couldn't be more comfortable in his pleated khakis and tucked-in sweatshirt.
Smith led the 49ers to success behind a stellar defense and a dominant running game, showcasing efficiency and leaving behind his former erratic play. He achieved the NFL's lowest interception rate, his first 3,000-yard season, and 5 fourth-quarter comebacks, propelling the Niners to 13 wins and their first playoff appearance in a decade. In their first playoff game in 20 out of 11 against the Saints, Smith essentially led 2 game-winning drives late in the 4th quarter, the second of which punched their ticket to the NFC title game. He's the greatest example of how bad coaching and circumstances can hold a good quarterback back. But really, for the first time that season, Smith looked like a liability in that game against the Giants. And even Kyle Williams took most of the blame for a pair of muffed punts. Smith missed a lot of opportunities that could have put the 49ers in Super Bowl 46, but it didn't happen. And it was clear that Harbaugh wasn't going to sit on his hands while an otherwise stacked team lacked a game changer at the QB position. Smith referred to himself as the president of game managing QBs recently, and that's what Harbaugh must have seen, even while Smith was resuscitating his very dead career. Despite a 19 5-1 record under Jim Harbaugh. A single concussion cost Smith his starting position. Smith and the Niners went 13-3 in 2011. He had the team at 6-2-1 in 2012, but Colin Kaepernick, a second-year QB from Nevada, took over during Smith's injury and led the team to the Super Bowl. Everything Smith did, Kaepernick did better in 2012, including absolutely gashing the Packers in the divisional round and leading a comeback in Atlanta to get the 49ers over the hump and into the Super Bowl. Smith, though active for Super Bowl 47 in New Orleans, only participated in the coin toss as his team narrowly missed out on a Lombardi. We remember that as the Harbaugh Bowl, where the power went out to aid the 49ers. But people also forget how fucking electric Colin Kaepernick was that entire season. Alex Smith was vanilla ice cream, and Kaepernick, he was pure, uncut Colombian cocaine ice cream.
That's a 10.
Kaepernick had won the job full-time in the Bay, and Smith was delivered to new Chiefs head coach Andy Reid in Kansas City to try and resuscitate a team that went through a disastrous 2012 campaign. The Chiefs sent the 49ers a second-round pick and a conditional pick in 2014 for Smith. And Alex Smith is proof that you can lose your job to injury, but he had shown enough to get Andy Reid interested. Now, over the course of 5 regular seasons in Kansas City, Alex Smith showcased his prowess by throwing 112 touchdowns and a mere 38 interceptions. Amidst his success, he secured 3 Pro Bowl invitations and guided the Chiefs to their first playoff victory since the era of Joe Montana. Now, despite bringing Kansas City back from the dead, like he did his own career, Smith was still viewed as a reluctant option rather than a competent quarterback, and was, fair or not, labeled as a game manager due to his tendency to avoid deep passes. He did, however, add a rushing threat to his game, churning out 431 yards on the ground in his first year in KC and nearly 500 2 years later. That's on par with Josh Allen's 2023 season in terms of rushing yards. Now, that game manager label gained traction as Smith went the entire 2014 season without throwing a single touchdown pass to a wide receiver. Remember that shit? Running back Jamal Charles and a young nobody tight end named Travis Kelce led the team with 5 receiving touchdowns each. Smith played well in the regular season, but the Chiefs repeatedly fell short in the playoffs. A humiliating 28-point collapse against the Colts, a narrow defeat in New England, and a devastating loss to the Steelers in Arrowhead following a promising 12-4 record and a first-round bye in the 2016 AFC playoffs. A pattern of Smith not elevating his game in the postseason was emerging. Now, following that disappointment at home, the Chiefs made the decision to pivot towards the future and traded up to select Satan himself, a Texas Tech quarterback named Patrick my fucking nightmare Mahomes. A guy I thought they were stupid to draft because Smith was playing pretty damn good football. And Mahomes was widely seen as a huge question mark, a serious project, but a guy with undeniable gifts, even if he didn't have his game finely tuned when he got to Kansas City. Oh, Andy Reid would fine-tune it, wouldn't he? Wouldn't he? Sorry, this is an Alex Smith episode. While Smith kept his starting position for the 2017 season, he understood that his time in Kansas City was limited. And unlike Brett Favre's situation in Green Bay, when Aaron Rodgers was drafted back in 2005, Smith embraced his role as a mentor to Mahomes while continuing to lead the team on the field. And he had no future plans of texting pictures of his penis to any reporters. That was also different from Brett Favre. Also, he was never intending to steal money from the poor for volleyball courts, allegedly. And if you think Aaron Rodgers is a weirdo now, maybe if Brett Favre was a better mentor, he could have, whatever.
It's kind of a weird coincidence.
Despite a stellar performance in the 2017 season, where he threw a career-high 26 touchdowns, and once again the lowest interception rate in the NFL, Smith's efforts weren't enough to secure a long-term future with the Chiefs. Smith had literally played his best football of his career, including finishing the season with a 104 passer rating. the exact same passer rating he had in San Francisco when he was benched for Colin Kaepernick. Imagine throwing at the highest level you've ever done before, and both times you're rewarded by losing your job. The team once again collapsed in the playoffs, this time blowing a lead at home to Marcus Mariota and the Titans. And it was clear after a strong performance by Mahomes in Week 17 against the Broncos that the team was turning the page on Alex Smith.
Alex, you're in trouble, man. Alex, my boy, but that kid right there, he has to be on the field, he has to play.
And just like that, Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Now, worst of all, the Chiefs sent Smith to one of the most poorly run organizations on earth.
The culture is actually damn good.
Jay Gruden was still the head coach there, and they were the embodiment of mediocre. Smith was brought in to replace Kirk Cousins, who had just left for the Vikings. And here's what Washington's team physician said when Alex Smith broke his leg in 2018. We're doing the best we can, and right now our first priority is we're going to save his life. And then we're going to do our best to save his leg. And anything beyond that is a miracle. So Alex Smith is a miracle. In a routine-looking play against the Texans, Smith got sandwiched in between J.J. Watt and Kareem Jackson, not a dirty hit, and suffered a spiral and compound fracture in his tibia and fibula in his right leg. After the first surgery was completed, the whole leg was being consumed by a flesh-eating bacteria that could have easily taken his leg and potentially his life if not treated quickly. 17 surgeries later, Smith was alive and ambulatory, but he spent 9 months in a hospital bed. He could have birthed the child, and when he finally walked, he used an external fixation device on that right leg to keep his bones from collapsing like the grossest Jenga game you've ever seen. And somehow, he managed to play professional football after all of that. Not that Washington really even wanted that to happen. In his miraculous first start since 2018, Smith threw for 390 yards against the Lions, a last-minute loss where the outcome felt secondary to the incomprehensible return everyone had witnessed. Smith playing well and losing to the Detroit Lions is actually quite fitting for his entire career. Following a win on national television that ended the undefeated streak of the Steelers, Smith led Washington to 2 more victories before succumbing to a minor injury to the same leg, which would be any injury to that leg, right? If they cut off 4 of his toes, it would be minor comparatively.
I could lose my other leg.
Despite returning in Week 17 and helping secure an NFC East title for Washington, the team opted to start Taylor Heineke in their wild card loss against the Buccaneers. And for the last time, Alex Smith was watching from the sidelines in the postseason.
I wish I got to play in a Super Bowl.
According to him, Washington never really wanted or felt like they needed him to come back. This was to prove that he could do it, and by God, he did it. And that's why Smith will always be one of my favorite quarterbacks to ever play. When I decided to come back, he said, I definitely threw a wrench in the team's plan. Smith told that to GQ after the season. They didn't see it, didn't want me there, didn't want me to be a part of it, didn't want me to be on the team, the roster, didn't want to give me a chance. How fucked up is that? And it turns out they really did need him. Smith didn't light up the stat sheet. In fact, his numbers looked a lot like they did during the early years in San Francisco, but he won 5 of his 6 starts and was the engine that propelled the football team to the playoffs that year with the 7-9 record, which nobody remembers because they lost with a different QB leading the team. But Smith defied all odds. He won Comeback Player of the Year from literally one of the worst injuries we've seen. He got 49 out of the 50 votes. And the Commanders, or whatever the fuck they were that year, were like, yeah, but we didn't really ask you to do any of that, did we? Thank God Joe Flacco wasn't good that season because he could have robbed that award from Alex Smith as well. Had Jim Harbaugh not arrived in San Fran, Smith would have most likely faded into backup QB obscurity. Instead, we got to watch him hit his full potential, and while it was never electric or elite, he went from bust to king of the game managers.
No, I'm going out to win games. I could care less how I do it. I want to win the game.
Alex Smith, the quarterback every team kind of needs, but none really wanted. Don't worry, Alex. I I will never forget your NFL contributions. Hopefully people remember you as well. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. Check out the next video. It's on the screen right now. Or brush up on all the quarterbacks in this draft. We've done videos on all of the interesting ones, haven't we?